afternoon. We're going to talk about a few things. You know, one of the great lessons in life I found after working on Dragon's Den and Shark Tank for over a decade now is the lessons I've learned from all the entrepreneurs that I've worked with. And so what I want to do today is spend a little time talking about this. I want to talk about the Dragon's Den Shark Tank journey from the perspective of what we can all learn from what occurs there. It's very rare that a television show will stay on the air for over a decade. That's extraordinary. But what can we learn from is the question. In season 4 of Shark Tank, I was doing Dragon's Den and Shark Tank at the same time back then, I decided that, you know, when you listen to dragons and sharks, they're always saying, does your product have a patent? How can I protect my investment? Is there some way that if I give you money, I can get it back because there's a protected moat around your business and I'll feel secure? And I thought to myself, what is the platform of Dragon's Den or Shark Tank worth? What is it worth just to get on the show? Forget about getting an investment. What is it worth to get 10 million eyeballs seeing you? Can you somehow measure that versus all this talk of patents and everything else? And I decided in year 4, I'm going to take a flyer. I'm going to invest in a product that is in no way protectable. In fact, it's an ubiquitous commodity. In fact, anybody can make it. What is more common than a cupcake? Sugar, water, flour, butter. I bet you around here, there's probably 50 companies making cupcakes for donut stores tonight. Anybody can do it. So nobody knows branded cupcakes. They hardly exist. What if you took one and put it onto the Shark Tank platform? What would happen? Could you measure the value of the platform? So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes of video of a deal called Wicked Good Cupcakes. This is a cupcake company in Cohasset, Massachusetts, a mother-daughter team that nobody was going to invest in. And I thought, this is my chance. If I could do a deal with these guys and just put them on the show, what will happen? And then what would we learn from it? And believe me, the lessons from this deal that happened years ago are extraordinary and shared with you today. So let's watch a couple of minutes of video of Wicked Good Cupcakes. Here we go.
We're from Cohasset, Massachusetts.
And our company is Wicked Good Cupcakes.
From Boston, and it's Wicked Pizza.
We're at a point where our company is growing too fast for us to keep up. And we actually have a new twist on how to share our Wicked Good Cupcakes with the needy. Hi Sharks, I'm Tracy Noonan. This is my daughter Danielle. We own and operate Wicked Good Cupcakes.
We're here today seeking $75,000 in return for 20% equity in our company. We received tons of requests to ship our cupcakes nationwide. It was a big challenge though, trying to figure out how to keep them fresh and intact. And that's when we came up with the idea of shipping them in a jar.
Our cupcake jars are baked fresh daily. We layer them with homemade frosting and filling, ship them in gift boxes with spoons so they're ready to eat right out of the package.
Basically, they appeal to anyone with a mouth.
Ladies, let me say welcome to the Shark Tank. I'm a fellow Bostonian. I live on Marlborough Street. That is one damn good jar of
The
cake.
growth potential that we have discovered with these is phenomenal.
Tracy, it's not patented. Someone else can put a cake in a jar and ship it across the country.
Absolutely, they could.
So tell me what your plan is. How are you going to grow this
We
business?
want to be the Ben and Jerry's of cupcakes in a
How
jar.
many days is the shelf life of a jar?
7 to 10.
7. So you've got to bake it and sell it right away and ship it because it's going to be 2 days before it's in somebody's mouth, right?
Correct.
Have you talked to anybody about extending the shelf life? Because I know it's something that you can do. Yeah.
You know,
The problem is, if you put preservatives, the taste is wonderful.
Yeah, that's exactly the question. Will it alter the taste?
What does each one cost to make, and what do you sell them for?
The 8-ounce jars cost $2.15 to make. We retail that for $5.95. The 16-ounce jar costs $3 to make, and we retail that for $8.95.
This product will never be in retail. It's always going to be an online. Somebody buys it, you bake it, and you send it overnight to them.
Actually, we do have some wholesale clients. We have a coffee company up in Massachusetts.
What are you charging per jar?
We're charging her $3 a jar.
It's not enough margin for me.
Okay, but here's the thing. we're buying in such pathetic bulk right now. If we
Okay,
had more
Tracy, your
money.
best case scenario, I give you $75,000.
Yep.
Tell me what your margins will be.
Sure.
Right now, it costs you $2.15 to make the small one and $3 for the big one.
Right.
How much can you reduce the cost?
I believe we can get the smaller jars down to $1.45.
Question I have is, on the mason jars, are there any alternative that would allow you to reduce your costs considerably?
I gotta say, the mason jars are a really big draw for people.
Exactly.
It's a whole,
mother's butter and apple
it's-
pie.
Exactly, it's a homemade product in a crafty
Well, you
container.
suggest homemade, right?
Right, exactly, and people do say that to us.
I'm gonna make you an offer, you may not like it. I love the products, I hate the margins. I'll give you the $75,000, I don't want anything. I want $1 from every jar. $1? Silence, please. What, let me get the offer out. I want $1 from every jar until I get my $75,000 back, which means you have to sell 75,000 jars, all right? And then I want it to drop to 50 cents in perpetuity. And you decide what to do with the business.
Can we just go down the hall for 1 second?
Look, trust me, you're not gonna get a worse offer than that, so you probably should talk.
Thank you.
How much money does that leave them when they can do $1?
Practically nothing.
What you doing, Kevin?
Hey, listen, this will give them incentive to figure the margin problem out.
What's 50 cents for every shot? Yeah.
I like my deal, and I'll sleep tonight with a cupcake beside me.
So Tracy and Danielle, welcome back.
Thank you.
4 sharks were out, and Mr. Wonderful made you an offer. He's giving you the $75,000, but he wants no equity. He wants $1 off every cupcake jar until he gets paid back, and then 50 cents from there on in until you can't bake anymore. Don't do a deal that could cripple your business.
I agree with him. Don't do something that you'll regret afterwards.
Oh, Tracy, talk is so cheap.
Okay, we'd like to come back to you with 40 cents a jar in perpetuity.
$0.45, you have a deal.
Come to mama!
Wow.
Get bacon. Good morning. I'm gonna be very happy.
Mr. Wonderful will see his return sooner than he thinks, and we're just going to do great.
Okay, so what happens to this company? No one's ever heard of Wicked Good Cupcakes before. It airs on a Friday night. In those days, when companies were building up websites and they wanted more capacity, there wasn't any cloud services they could afford. It was very expensive, so they'd have to buy more servers. So what would happen on Dragon's Den or Shark Tank invariably is they'd get a deal, it would air, and their website would blow up. They'd capture some of the orders and then nothing else. In this situation, remarkably, the husband of Tracy, the wife, the mother, worked at Fidelity in Boston in their online division as they were setting up their online trading platform. So they had massive amounts of servers, and he went to his bosses and asked them to borrow or lend him capacity between 9 and 12 midnight, which they did. We nearly took down Fidelity that night. The story was so compelling that they got thousands and thousands of orders a minute, and in 28 days, I got back my $75,000. But it didn't stop there. What the husband learned, Scott, who was a statistician, and this is where it gets interesting. If you look at Canada, or the United States, or Mexico, 8 out of 10 businesses that are started fail within 36 months for one singular reason. Their cost of acquiring a customer never gets below the value of that customer over a lifetime. In other words, simply put, it costs you more to acquire a customer than they're worth to you, and you go bankrupt. That happens 80% of the time. Now, what Scott learned that evening, which started to change the whole way we thought about television and business was the customer acquisition cost that night for Wicked Good Cupcakes. And this is a product that is bought mostly in holiday seasons, birthdays, that kind of thing, Easter, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is, people send gifts like this on the internet. That evening, he noticed his customer acquisition costs were zero. He got thousands of customers at no cost and started to order from him over and over and over again. And that lit up his mind. He said, well, wait a second. If I can get my ladies back on television, can I get more customers? But he didn't stop there. He said, if I can take the television feed, the actual minutes we just saw there, and chop it up into 30 seconds and 60 seconds and 20 seconds and 10 seconds and put it out on all the social media platforms, can I get more free customers? And this is where it got scientific. Here you see these two ladies a few weeks later, Tracy and Danny, who are now, by the way, multimillionaires, on television again. Here they are on ABC 2020 network television, which what was called the Cupcake Sales Challenge, on a truck in New York City. It only aired for a minute and a half, but on primetime news, they picked up 16,000 customers. Here they are with Kris Jenner. What does Kris Jenner have to do with cupcakes? Nothing. But she's on television. Here they are selling their 1 millionth cupcake in Faneuil Hall in Boston. Now, for those of you that are good at math, 45 cents a jar times a million is $450,000 for Mr. Wonderful. I'm very happy about that. My accountants think they're selling something else, not cupcakes. This is the most successful deal in Shark Tank history from an IRR perspective. It's also the very first royalty deal, which shows you can align your interests if you're a royalty holder, as opposed to taking equity away from family members. The business now has 26 family members in it. It's the #1 cupcake FedEx in America. But we're not finished learning here yet, because taking this content and serving it up on social media is how these people built a massive business, by keeping their customer acquisition costs close to zero. And everybody in this room can learn from these two ladies, because telling a story about a product and putting it on social media is how you connect with customers today the way you never could 20 years ago. They don't look you up in the yellow pages anymore, they find you online, and it's how you connect to them. That was the most important lesson we learned from this. And now when you look at a Dragon's Den deal, or you look at a Shark Tank deal, and by the way, Dragon's Den is on all around the world. This show is owned by Sony Television. It's on in Hong Kong, in Brazil, in England, obviously here. All kinds of countries, Australia, New Zealand. And the same remains. Everybody's figured out that social media is how to start a business, and if you're good at it, you can acquire customers for free and be very profitable within 24 or 30 months and avoid that 80%. The 20% that make it figure out social media. That's what happens. They figure out how to acquire customers at a very low cost. Something else, and if it's the only thing you remember from my presentation today, I want it to be this next section. I teach a lot now. I teach at McGill, at Waterloo, at Harvard, at MIT. I teach graduating cohorts of engineers. Some cohorts as big as this room. Because 1/3 of every graduating class of engineers are going to become entrepreneurs. And I like to teach entrepreneurs, but I teach them this. If you look at over 15 years of tape of Dragon's Den in all these different geographies, it turns out that there are 3 common attributes present in every case where a pitch got funded. In other words, they got a check. It did not determine the outcome of the business. It determined the beginning of the journey. Somebody came in with an idea and asked for money to fund it, and 3 common attributes are always present in every geography, in every language, every time there's a successful pitch. So what are they? Let's look at them. This is fascinating. Number 1, they're able to articulate the opportunity in 90 seconds or less. Hi, I'm from Cohasset, Massachusetts. I take cupcakes, I put them in a mason jar, and I FedEx them to people. I get it. That took 12 seconds. I totally understand what your business is. It turns out in life, if you want to lead people, I don't care if you're a politician, a preacher, a general, an entrepreneur, a teacher, you have to tell them where you want to go. And you have to do it very quickly. If you can't communicate the opportunity or the direction in 90 seconds or less, you will fail. This is number one. So communicating the opportunity turns out to be paramount, but it's not enough. Number two is, what is it about you that makes you the right person or team very often to execute on the opportunity? A great idea without executional skills is worthless. Putting these two together is the beginning of the building blocks on which an investor might get interested in investing, because you have a great idea, and then you have to explain why you're the right person to execute it. For example, I worked in a competitor's business for 5 years, and I've learned the ropes. This is my family business. It's been in our family for generations. I've tried 3 times before and failed every time. The fourth is going to work because I've learned my lessons. I know something about this business that others don't, and I'm the right person to execute on the business plan. Now, when you get these two right, you can start to feel the room sizzle. Investors get interested when there's a great opportunity matched with an executional team that can implement it. Because investors want path of least resistance. They want returns with the least risk. If these two exist, now you're talking. Now you're almost ready. But there's one more, and this one is the killer. I've seen the oxygen get sucked out of a room so fast when this happens. You have to know your numbers. If you get in front of an investor and convince them you have a great idea and you're the right person to execute the business, and you don't know your numbers, you deserve to burn in hell in perpetuity, and I will personally put you there. If you don't know your numbers, bring somebody that does. How big is the market? How fast is it growing? What's the gross margin? You saw that woman talking about her gross margins on the 2 different jar sizes. She knew them to the penny. That gives investors confidence that you know the metrics of business, which are the numbers. You have to know the numbers. When you get all 3 of these right, you get an investor. This is going to be the same tomorrow, in a week, in a year, in 1,000 years. It will remain the same. So if you're planning on being an entrepreneur, something between 20 and 30% in this room are going to be, you better get this nailed down and ingrained in your brain. Never, never stand up in front of a potential investor and not have all 3 of these nailed down, or you will fail. More information. After doing this for almost 15 years, with over 34 portfolio companies now, I'm going to share some rather interesting data with you. In venture investing, there's a concept called a going concern test. And what that means is, not all investments work. And each December, if you're in a control position of a company you've invested in, and they are not profitable, you're probably going to have to invest in the next 12 months to keep them afloat. And you have a decision to make. One option is that you don't fund it anymore and you bankrupt it or take the tax loss in the calendar year you're considering. That's just the Darwinian nature of venture investing. Not everything works. And so your auditors, your accountants will do a going concern test based on the numbers of every one of your holdings in the portfolio, and you start to see the trends. Sometimes it's a better decision to take the business behind the barn and shoot it than it is to keep going, because the tax loss is valuable versus the ones that are profitable. That's just how it is. About 8 years ago, we started to do some work looking at, are there any commonalities between the companies? And remember, 34 companies all over North America. The CEOs don't know each other. They're in practically every business sector in the S&P 500. They're all private. The smallest is 5 million in sales. The largest is $500 million. The average size is 26 employees. And yet some of them are phenomenally successful and the others are total failures. Why? So we started digging. And here's what we discovered. Not some of my returns, practically 100% of them came from companies run by women. Why? Why? I'm not trying to start gender warfare here. I would give money to a goat if I could get a return. But what are these women doing to get so much capital back so quickly? Because what I decided to do was to hold a forum in February after we gathered this data I'm going to share with you now, and make sure every single CEO understood what was going on here, so we could get best practices on the table. And we did that. We did it in February, and we shared this data I'm going to show you now. You know, these are just some of the companies I'm talking about here. You've already met the cupcake winner. Sarah Mondalis runs Honey Fund, North America's largest wedding registry. She's the back office for Target. That's $500 million in sales a year. Wine and Design is a franchise where for 1,200 square feet, you set it up. People come and paint and drink wine at night. It's wildly successful. And the two women in the bottom right run a business called Surprise Ride out of Washington, D.C., where they are replacing tablets and cell phones for children with old science kits. And women are buying these like crazy to get their kids off the tablets at night, like volcanoes that explode and setting up a science experiment or electrical design, that kind of thing. Wildly successful. So here's what we learned. Number one, you know that old adage, you want something done, give it to a busy mother? Time management skills, it turns out, in a small private company are really important. How the CEO spends their time and how every employee is tasked. Because in a small company, everybody's doing everything. And how you set them up, it doesn't mean you're micromanaging them, it means you're allocating their time to tasks that you're choosing. This ends up being very, very important, and one of the secrets. But this second one is what I think drives the whole business. But listen to this statement. We went back and looked at over 7 years at every single quarter, every 90 days sales target versus what was set as a target and then what was actually achieved. In the case of the companies run by men, they achieved their sales targets 65% of the time. Not bad. And we called that the testosterone target because they always set their targets very high, very, very high, and only met them 65% of the time. I didn't see a problem with that. Then we looked at the companies run by women. They hit their targets 95% of the time, but lowered them way down, in some cases down 30%. Okay, why would you care about that? Why would that matter? Why would that in some way change the outcome of returns? Well, it really matters. Here's what we learned. In a company where targets are met consistently 95% of the time, the culture changes. It's like playing on a winning basketball or baseball or football team. Nobody wants to leave. And what happens is the staff turnover drops to practically zero. And when there's no staff turnover, there's no disruption in the business flow. And the cash flows are much more stable. This is genius. By reducing the targets and changing the culture, they had much more stability in their free cash and they returned it back faster. It doesn't matter to have targets you're setting if you can't reach them, if the negative aspect is your staff doesn't feel comfortable anymore and doesn't want to stay. So we've completely changed our metrics. Don't set targets you can't achieve. You're not fooling anybody. And you're certainly not making a culture a better place to work at. Reduce the targets to where they're achievable and get this outcome. Much more stability in the business. This was a real eye-opener to me. Because I love to set high targets. I like people achieving, right over the fences kind of outcomes. But it doesn't work long term. This works. This is what matters. This is a secret sauce in some ways. We also learned this concept of listening. Sarah likes to say, and all the CEOs gave speeches to the other CEOs, and I thought what she said was brilliant. She said, shut your mouth and listen. When you're a CEO, you have a myopic vision of where you want to take your business. And one of the reasons you take the risk is you have the energy to pursue that and have a focus on it. But that doesn't always help you. Because when you listen to the constituencies of business, which are one, your customers. You can't have a business without customers. You have to listen to them. Number two, your employees. They generally know before you where the problems are. You have to listen to them. Not argue with them, listen to them. And lastly, who's financing your business? Investors or the bank? You have to listen to them too. And the reason you're assimilating this data constantly is you never know when you're an entrepreneur when the world is changing from under your feet and something else is happening. And then you have to assimilate that data and then you have to pivot. You have to change your direction. And great entrepreneurs are able to do that. They're able to listen to all of these constituencies, and when things have changed, they change too. They're not so pig-headed that they think their vision is the only path to success. Because businesses change, opportunities change, markets change, political environment changes, and you have to listen. This ends up being very important. Lastly, let's talk about this. You start a business. Let's go back to the cupcake experience for a second. You light your business up online, Somebody buys your product or service for the first time. In the case of a cupcake, they get it, they open up the jar, they eat it, they like it. They order it again. The first time they tried it was a pleasant experience, and now they have an expectation. Their expectation is when they get the second order, it's going to taste the same, and their experience is going to be the same as the first time. Then they order it again for the third time. What is occurring here? What's occurring is extremely valuable. You're building a brand. People are associating your brand with an experience that they're willing to pay for. And they've done it more than once. This is incredibly important. When you start reselling a product or service to the same person multiple times, you're building an equity that is extremely valuable long term. Now that's the good news. Here's the bad news. If you have a customer and they're happy with you, and all of a sudden in your product or service, they have a bad experience. In the old days, all they could do is pick up the phone and call customer service and complain. Not anymore. When they're unhappy, they go nuts on social media, and they do tremendous damage to you. Tremendous damage. Beyond what you could even assimilate. I see some of my companies' sales drop within weeks after they had a bad outcome somewhere, and customers start to vent in social media. In fact, I bring these always to talk about this. This red